This video will guide you through the first part of your Illuminate reflection today. Specifically, we're going to focus on how you can understand your Illuminate data. Here we have a sample student that's going to look like what you all see. They have 3 data points filled out already, these 2 points about computer scored items and constructed response, and what we'll get to later, how they were scoring in 7th grade on these Illuminate tests. First, let's take a look at this year's test. You're going to be asked to complete the table, and that's going to reveal your total percent correct on yesterday's Illuminate 1 math test. So for each one of you, the number of points that you earned for computer scored items and for constructed response items is going to be filled out here. Your job is to find the total and then find the percentages. So if I scored 10 out of 20 on computer scored items and I scored 3 out of 8 on constructed response, my total score would be 13 out of 28. Computer scored items are multiple choice ones, multiple select, and the short answer ones, things the computer can grade. That's the data we gave you right away yesterday for some students. 10 out of 20 we know as a percentage, that's a half, and that a half is 50%, so quickly the student can complete that part. They scored 50% on the computer scored items. 3 out of 8, if we don't know what 3 out of 8 is as a percentage, we could use a calculator. Google's toolbar tells us 3 divided by 8 is 0.375, or that's 37.5%. 13 out of 28, again, I don't know what 13 divided by 28 is, so I'm going to use a calculator to help me out. 13 divided by 28, 46.4%. I'm going to go ahead and round that off to 46%. This symbol here says it's close to or rounded off to 46%. So when you combine these two things, the student's total score is 46% correct, or 13 out of 28 points available were correct yesterday. The second part is going to ask you to figure out what your grade will look like on Google Classroom for this test grade if you scored a 46%. Like we talked about yesterday and before that, this was a difficult test. The average score in our class ended up being 10 out of 28 points, or 36% correct, right around what students in the city were scoring as well. So because of that, we ended up adding points to everybody's test. We call that a curve. We specifically added 39 percentage points to all of your tests, and that brought our class's average from 36% up to a fair, reasonable 75%. So this student says I scored 46% correct, or got 46% of the points available, but I also add 39% to every single student's test before it goes on to Google Classroom for a grade. So when this student looks on Google Classroom, 40 and 5 is 70, and 9 is 15, and 70 plus 15 means 85%. So that would be this student who scored 46%. That's not a great grade on this test. We still have some things to work on, but when the average student in our class and in the city scoring around 35%, that's a pretty good test. We're going to give them an 85%. The last 2 pieces are going to have you start comparing your score, in this student's case 46%, to how the other students did across the city. But because the other students in the city only have computer scored items for all of them, the constructed response might not get graded by their teacher. We can really only compare computer scored items when we talk to other students across the city. So for this test, the median, or the student right in the middle for all of the 8th graders in Boston Public Schools this year, scored 8 out of 20 points on the multiple choice. That's 40%. You're asked to figure out how did you compare to the average student who was scoring 8 out of 20 points, or 40% on the multiple choice yesterday. In this student's case, they could say that I scored 50% correct on computer score. Average student in BPS 40%, I was 10% or 10 percentage points higher than the median student in BPS. We could get specific median greater in BPS. Now, number 4 is going to have you take this data from number 3, how you did compared to the average or median BPS student. You're going to look at how you were doing with that same data point in 7th grade. See, for this student, when they were in 7th grade, on average for the Illuminate math test 17 percentage higher than the median APS student. This year, scoring plus 10 percentage points, or 10 percentage points higher than the average APS student. So we're going to go ahead and change that to green after we put that in there, because that's still above the average student. That's still a strong data point, something we can be happy about. But we also want to take a look at how did things go from last year compared to this year. And in this student's case, even though things are going okay, getting an 85% on Google Classroom for this test, we're scoring 10 percentage points higher than the average student in the city, we still went back by 7 percentage points compared to last year. We weren't scoring quite as highly as we did in 7th grade. So when this student starts to complete the reflection later, they see a lot of strong data points, and 85% in the grade book, 10% ahead of the average student in the city. But they also say at just 46% correct, there's still a lot of 8th grade math that I can't do yet, that I need to keep working on. And if my score went back a little bit from 7% last year, I want to start thinking about what could I do better? What were some things that could help me back to 17% ahead, or maybe even higher than that if we keep moving this year?